Undiminished emotion.
Thank you very much. Let's deal with this. See, because look, I know you're a wise man, and so you must understand that I'm a baby in wisdom, but I'm not a fool. And he's saying here today that the Caucasian is in fact the oldest group on the planet. I beg to differ. Look, one of the most famous anthropologists is Professor Leakey. And when Professor Leakey went in search of the origin of human beings and human species, he didn't stop very long in Europe. He went to Africa. And the oldest bones and the oldest human beings to this day that you call Zinzanthropus, using the Latin meaning Zin and Xanthropus, meaning a black man, that oldest man, they say, is millions of years old. You went back and found one even older than that. You called her Lucy, a black woman.
Go ahead.
And every sensible historian, anthropologist today agrees that the black man is the father of human beings. Even your geneticist, Mr. Mendel.
Go ahead.
You have Mendel's law.
Go ahead.
Mendel says that light eyes are recessive. Light skin is recessive. You can take the recessive, the dark skin is dominant, the dark eyes are dominant. You can take the recessive from the dominant, but you can't get the dominant from the recessive. This is Mendel's law. And so all of your scientists have proved that you can't look. Black is not even a color.
That's right. Teach.
Black is the mother and father of all colors.
Teach.
That's why the scripture says, in the beginning was blackness. And if you want a baby, even if the woman is a white woman, the baby has to come out of the triple darkness of her womb. And this is the origin of all life. Within the black, you have the whole color spectrum. But in white, two white people laying down together, they can only produce white. But two black people in darkest Africa can lay down together and produce albino with blonde hair and blue eyes.
That's right. Teach, Muhammad.
This happens all the time. And so we need to really get these facts correct today and understand that as gray as your hair is, you are listening to your father today.
Teach, Muhammad.
This is daddy talking.
Teach.
And we mustn't turn. No, this is true. I'm not mocking. This is true. And I'm telling you, I believe that this man is even sincere in what he says. But this is the problem.
Right.
There are many Caucasian people who sincerely believe.
Go ahead.
That they are our mothers and fathers.
Teach them.
When in fact the opposite is true. Look, that's why you only just came on the planet yesterday. What happened when you came on the planet? You came on the planet and you discovered things. But what did you discover? Things that were already there. So you went to Egypt, you said, wow. And you call it a wonder of the world. In other words, you're wondering who built it. What was the technology used? Because even to this day, you can't reproduce a pyramid.
Benjamin Instrumental.
We're supposed to go to Africa and find the village we come from. We were stolen. Come to the ghetto and find my black ass. I done been colored, I've been Negro, I've been so many goddamn things. And it's not true. None of that is true. We're not any of those things. I put down there when they put race, what it really is, I put it down. What are we? Stolen Africans. That's exactly what we are. I figured it out for myself. That's why white people don't want us in their neighborhoods or at their house. Every state in America, you can be arrested for having stolen property on your property.
Benjamin Instrumental. Benjamin Instrumental.
here's the reality. The image of a white Jesus has been used to justify enslavement, conquest, colonialism, the genocide of indigenous peoples. There are literally millions of human beings whose lives have been snuffed out by people who conquered under the banner of a white god. That is a far more significant problem than whether a black writer in 2013 suggests somewhat humorously, but perhaps seriously, that we should change Santa to a penguin. No one's going to die because of that iconography. The white Jesus, white God imagery has literally resulted in death. That's something folks ought to deal with. What Megyn Kelly said was very simply, quote, Santa is white, end of quote, and so is Jesus. So I think the real issue is, if you want to make a joke about Santa's whiteness, here's a way to do it that would not presume white normalcy or that white is the norm. You could say, for instance, and I would, that if there were Santa, he'd have to be white because no black man could break into millions of homes even if he was bearing presents and not be shot by some neighborhood watch captain. That's a way to be funny, but Fox News would never do that because that would presume that they had to admit racial profiling and racism were real. So there's that. I think the real issue is that she made a statement of fact, not for her own opinion, but fact. There's a difference between believing in Santa and believing in Jesus or the Buddha. Buddha did not come from Kansas. Jesus was not born in a manger in central Pennsylvania. He was a man of color, and the fact that we have represented him for centuries, literally as a white man, speaks to the entire history of white supremacy. We can act like it didn't happen. We can make it the punchline of a joke, but the reality is this iconography, Jesus more so than Santa, I agree with Mel here, Jesus more so than Santa is a real problem. There's a reason we've represented these icons as white. It's not a coincidence that we've done that.
Okay. Do you think there's something inherently wrong? I understand you saying that a white Jesus has been used to do horrible things, but
here's the difference, and Reza is right. No, Reza's right, but the difference is that the power of others to make Jesus or to make Christ as they view him has never come close to the power of the European power to make Jesus white. In other words, black folks can think Jesus is black and view Christ as black, but at the end of the day, the image that has been used to dominate Christianity in this world and on this planet is the white image. So therefore, you can believe, you can think Jesus looks like whatever you want or that Christ looks like whatever you want. Ultimately, though, there is such a thing as power, and it's not equitable. And so if certain people have been able to impose their image of the Christ, of the Savior on others, or God, or Adam and Eve, the first human beings ostensibly as white people, to believe that that doesn't have an effect is to believe that advertising doesn't have an effect. It's to believe that companies that spend billions of dollars don't actually sell you stuff based on the images they use, which is nonsense.
Benjamin Instrument. Benjamin Instrument. Benjamin Instrument.
Why does a cool, mellow fellow like yourself want to hang around with a bunch of stuffy old white guys?
Same reason you want to hang around those stuffy old white guys. Power. Connections. But let's keep it real. I'm just a cool, mellow fellow. Just shucking and jiving. Crip walking, basketball playing, singing, dancing, and taking out your garbage. That's what I am to you.
You're right. You are African American. And myself and my friends, for the most part, don't care for the company of African Americans. Quite frankly, we're entertained by you. We're thrilled by your high-flying acrobatics on the basketball court. That wonderful sense of rhythm you have. Your animal athleticism. But apart from that, we have no use for you. Understand? I mean, let's face it, James. Do you set a place at your dinner table for your pit bulls? Now, is this keeping it real enough for you?
I have another theory on this subject matter, and it goes something like this. I imagine several hundred years ago, a group of very powerful men, none like yourself, were out conquering the known world. So they get to Africa, feeling pretty good about themselves, definitely feeling superior to the savages they see running in the jungle. That is, until one of the brothers drops his loincloth. And then these powerful men all of a sudden come face to face, so to speak, with one of life's great iniquities.
Then diminish the myth.
Because he is internalizing the same messages from the media, from the schools that we all are. So we don't have to feel guilty. Messages? Those messages are that black men are dangerous, because if you look at the news, there have been studies on this. Local news overrepresents black folks as perpetrators, overrepresents white folks as victims. So the message that gets sent is they're dangerous, and specifically to you. They are not only bad people, they're going to hurt you. So therefore, we want to keep them on that side of town. We want to keep their children in those schools over there. We don't want to work around them. We don't want to live around them, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that message comes through loud and clear in the way that media represents people of color. You know, whenever we, thinking about Tamir Rice, the 12-year-old child that was shot in Cleveland by police, when that happened, what did they do? The first news story in Cleveland that made a big splash was about Tamir Rice's parents and the history of domestic abuse and criminality among his parents, not about the cop that killed him. We talk worse about black victims than we do white killers. What did we say about Ted Bundy? Oh, he was so smart, and he was so quiet, and he always seemed so nice. Every time one of these white boys goes and shoots up a school, what do we say? We had no idea he was going to do this. So we talk better. We have more sympathy for white folks who commit mass murder, bury bodies under the house, cook them up in a soup pot, and eat them, right, than we do black folks who were killed by police. We start digging for every bad thing they ever did. We want to know if they had a juvenile record. We want to know if they'd ever been arrested. That's what the media does. And until that changes, I'm afraid white folks will stay in denial, and it'll be very hard for us to move forward, whether we're talking about cops or just average everyday folks.
Diminish the myth.
respond to incidents of anti-blackness and state-sanctioned violence against black people. The movement is for people who are interested in the liberation of black lives.
And yet there is serious criticism of BLM. What do you make of those critiques, especially of their relationship with law enforcement?
The one criticism that frustrates me the most is this idea that there's a need for a leader, which is this coded language for meaning that there's no straight male leader at the helm. But truth is, civil rights work has been organized by communities of women, queer, and gender non-conforming people of color. Secondly, there's this misconception that anything pro-black means anti-white. It doesn't. Anybody who wants to fight for equity and justice should feel empowered to do so. I mean, reality is, law enforcement in this country is built on anti-black racism. As a community, we need to interrogate our relationship with police. It's critical for our survival. We deserve to be served and protected, and I want to work hand in hand with the brave men and women who agree with that, of course. Because they do exist.
Benjamin Instrumental. Benjamin Instrumental.
Agree on anything. As a country, we just can't agree. We just fight about everything. We can't even agree on Black Lives Matter. That's a controversial statement. Black lives matter. Not matters more than you, just matters. Matters. Just matters. That's where we're starting the negotiations. Matters. We can't agree on that shit. What the fuck is less than matters? Black lives exist. Can we say that? Can we say that controversial? We always ask for the lowest common denominator. We ask for the lowest rights. Gays were fighting for equal rights. Equal rights. Could you believe that's an actual stance you could have? You could be for equal rights? That means there's people out there saying, I think everybody should have the same rights as everyone else. And there's other people like, nah, son, I disagree. I just don't think so. Black people was fighting for civil rights, not even equal. Just civil. Can we get civil? I'll take civil rights. Just be civil. Come on, civil. Can we get civil? Turn the fucking hose off. Can we just get... They don't tell you Black lives don't matter. That's not what they say. That's not the argument. They hit you with that slick shit. Like, well, all lives matter. Really? Semantics? That would be like if your wife came up to you and was like, do you love me? And you were like, baby, I love everybody. What are you talking about? I love all God's creatures. What are you saying? You're no different. Why do black people always have to get over shit so quickly? Why do we always gotta get over shit? Every time we bring some shit up. Slavery, oh, that was 400 years ago. Segregation, oh, you guys got Black History Month out of it. Come on, we gave you February. Police shooting, that was 2 weeks. Come on, you still? 9/11, oh, never forget.
Benjamin Instrumental.
Great. Dad always said America was a great country. He said there was justice here, laws. He could recite the Declaration of Independence by heart. You know what? I'm glad he's dead. That way he didn't have to see it was all a big fat lie.
Look, there's a lot more involved before we can arrest.
She was killed at his door. Who else could have done it? It's because he's a big shot, isn't it? What's the use? Governments. They're all the same.
Benjamin Instrumental.
On the same sort of train of thought,
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you what your thoughts are on the N-word and like the use of that in rap music, because obviously as a white person I've been brought up never to ever use that word, but a lot of the music I listen to says it 20 times in every song.
Yeah, for sure.
So I wanted to know what your thoughts are on that, and like whether you think it's a word that's become obsolete or whether you think that there are negative consequences on the fact that it's so widely used.
I do, I very much do. I used to be someone who used the word all the time, as some of you may or may not know.
I came to a stage in my life where one of my elders said to me, you're better than that. And I started reading a bit more. I started studying the history of the word. I started looking at the brutality that had been underpinned by this word. Let me be clear, I'm not against people using the word. I'm just against the stupid idea that it's now become a term of endearment. It hasn't. It has so much blood attached to it. For me, it means what it's always meant. It is a term of white supremacist genocide. It is a word that says African people are not human. It was a way of reducing people to subhuman status, which led to, as I've said, to people being put in zoos or public lynchings in America, where someone could literally be barbecued in public and people thought it was perfectly acceptable to bring their child, give their child the day of school to come and watch a person be barbecued in public. Rail systems would operate special lynching day rail cards. After the lynching, there'd be postcards with the dead person on front of it. They'd send out as souvenirs. So this is the history behind that word. If we look at early hip-hop, when hip-hop was a bit more independent, when hip-hop was owned a bit more by the black community, we see that hip-hop was completely offensive to everyone. People would say cracker, they'd say honky, they'd say nigger. You'd have Ice Cube making inappropriate songs like Black Korea. You'd have songs, NWA songs that were about killing black people. Hip-hop was just completely like punk. It was just offensive to everyone. But someone decided somewhere it was no longer acceptable to say cracker and honky and those kind of words, but nigger was okay. And for me, when we look at who owns hip-hop, Mos Def made a song called Old White Men is running this rap shit. It's called The Rape's Over. It was on a beat, the same beat that Jay-Z made The Takeover on. And that song was taken off of his album without his label telling him, because he criticized white corporate ownership of hip-hop. He said some tall Israeli is running this rap shit, and that was taken to be anti-Semitic. Leo Cohen is tall, and he's Israeli. It's a statement of fact. It wasn't anti-Semitic. He was like, that's who's in charge of rap. It's not black people. And so I think that the use of that word has become, to me, very gimmicky, has become a dangerous way of glossing over the reality of what it was to be black in America. And certainly for me, as someone whose mother's white, I don't understand the motivation for white people to want to use the word. When people are like, oh, but why can't I use it? I'm white. I'm like, first of all, why do you feel oppressed by that? I'm confused. And knowing the history, why do you want to call your black friend nigger? Let's just deal with that for a minute. Because my mum's white, and she's never had the desire to say, look at my little nigger son. So I'm confused why people want to use the word. Now, black people can figure out for ourselves whether or not we think it's intelligent to continue using the word. But why are young white kids like, I just want to call, I just want to. This comes back to your question a little bit. This perverse sort of, ooh, blackness is just a bit dangerous and it's a bit sexy and it's a bit violent. Ooh, can I say nigger, can't I? It's a little bit of that, yeah? But I don't think a song called Honkies in Harlem would get on Radio 1. But Niggas in Paris will.
We've got time for one more question. Could we go to the question on the back row over there?
But what white person want a black person telling them what to do? So, that's my theory, and I'm sticking to it. They don't want a black man to have power over them. They don't want a black man to make more money than them. So. That was the final straw for me. That was it. That was the final. That was the end. You know, I learned to bite my tongue. You know, as a black child, you learn to bite your tongue. You're gonna be called this. You're gonna be called that. But you can't act on ignorance. You know, you can't be ignorant because they're ignorant. You can't be that way. But that was just it for me. Like, why should I be silent of stupidity? I shouldn't have to, and I'm not. I had to do what I thought or I think that's best for me and my child, which is get away from here. I know it's something better than this out there for me and my child. I don't want her to see the things that I've seen. And no, I haven't seen the things that mom and daddy have seen, but I've seen enough. This was enough for me.
Instrument.